God bless you guys. Welcome to TDP Bible Study today. I'm excited to be here. I know you guys are excited as well. I've seen it in the comments. It's a pleasure to have you guys here tonight with us. As you can see, it's me and Pastor Ezekiel. Pastor Ezekiel, how are you doing today?
God bless you, Benjamin. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited. I'm excited for this Bible study. I know a lot of us are too. It's once again, it's a pleasure for you guys to be here. If you guys haven't done so already, feel free to share the link on your social media platforms, Facebook, um, YouTube, wherever you would want to. We have availability in both platforms to be able to view. So feel free to share it and touch others as we go along in this Bible study. I'm excited to see of our leaders here as well, Deacon Lindsay, Brother Robert, Pastor Sarai. Just to shout out a few of them, but really everybody is a great honor and pleasure to see you guys here. And without further ado, I think we should just go ahead and get started. Pastor, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to share.
No, I'm just super excited to be here tonight. We're going to be going through the book of Ecclesiastes now, and just a beautiful journey we've been on. I'll share a little bit of context and reason why we're in these books right now, but I'm just blessed. I'm honored to be able to take part of this journey alongside all of you, and I'm proud of the church. I know Bible study in itself is I know something that we all desire, but having the discipline for it is where the challenge,
Yeah.
lies. And so, just proud of those who have been, you know, making sacrifices and efforts. And I pray that we're all blessed today.
Amen. Amen. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with prayer then. And then we jump right into this book. If everybody could join me. Father God, we just thank you, Lord, for another opportunity to just be able to be in your word, to be able to just grasp what you have set in for us, God, Lord, what you have placed in Pastor Ezekiel's heart, God, to share on this book, Ecclesiastes, God. Lord, I ask you, Lord, to just minimize any distractions right now in all of our homes to allow us to be able to be focused, to be ready to receive what you have in store for us, God. We pray all these things in your mighty son's name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Benjamin. I'm excited for you to be hosting
Yeah.
together with me in this journey. Let's just begin with how many of you have read through Ecclesiastes before? If you have,
Yeah.
then while we set kind of an introduction to the study, if you have any comments about, if you can remember any sentiments about this book, please share it. And as I'm going through the introduction, um, if anyone has shared their thoughts or feelings or reflections about the book, then right before we get into text, we'll just kind of go over sentiments about Ecclesiastes. So I'm excited if anyone does have anything to share. Then Benjamin, if you could just keep
Yeah.
your eye on, and then before we really get into it, just pause me, and then we'll just read some of those reflections if we get any. So
Sound good.
let's begin. First and foremost, I'm super excited to be taking part. I've been away from Bible study for a little bit, just had a lot of things going on, and then I also traveled, and so I'm glad to be back. So, um, where did we leave off? I think it's good that we know that we last Bible study was taught by brother Benjamin Hillsden,
Yeah.
together with Pastor Daniel, and what a tremendous Bible study! If you were unable to watch or you missed it, then please go back. They're available on our YouTube channel. We broadcast live on Facebook and YouTube, but they're saved and they're stored in the YouTube channel. So just go
Yeah.
back and give it a listen. And I think it's important to we've been on this journey, and I'll tell you a little bit about that in just a second. But the book of Ecclesiastes, so you guys know, if you don't, is part of what has become known as the three-part collection of wisdom literature from our Hebrew Bible or the Old Testament. And so the book of Proverbs that we just finished, Ecclesiastes, which we're going to go in today, And then next time we meet, the book of Job. Those three books together have become called and understood as this three-part collection of uh, wisdom literature. That's the type of style or the type of writing that
Yeah.
it is. And so, again, Proverbs was wonderful. And so the journey continues. So that's kind of awesome too. Like, I mean, when you finish Proverbs, you could almost say, "What else is there?" This is here it all is. I mean, there was
Yeah.
almost so much. There's so much, right? To just pause, reflect, start moving even slower, go deeper, right? Even, you know, uh, a night of study is not sufficient, but just the study opens you up to, wow, there's so much in here. And so you could almost be like, whoa, thank you, I got it all. But what's so beautiful in our Bibles just kind of shows that the wisdom goes even further. And so
Mm.
that's what we're going to see today. The wisdom goes further. And um, if you've journeyed through Ecclesiastes, it comes across in a very different and unique way that we're going to explore. But one of the things I wanted to kind of set and kind of share with you guys, just right to remind you that we've been in this journey of the Old Testament, and we intentionally decided to place the wisdom collection books, this wisdom literature, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Job. We intentionally placed them where we have. And so, uh, you know, when you just pick up Proverbs, pick up Ecclesiastes, it's kind of hard to just kind of like place them into the narrative, you know,
Yeah.
logical setting. However, we decided to place them here at the end, kind of the historic chronological order that we attempted to go in, right, to the best of our abilities. Um, and so, right, we've been following Israel, following them as a nation called by God, seeing their tragic journey, right, of entering into the promised land, them being carried off, exiled from it, right. We have all that history. We kind of ended off, right, with them, God gracing them to go back into the promised land and rebuild the temple. And then we kind of left off with the last prophet of Malachi, still waiting for a Messiah. Why? Because they failed to be the covenant people of God. And so there's a hope that is still needed for them, right? Their
Yeah.
story's not over. And this is what we look forward to and are pointed forward to in our New Testament, right?
Hmm.
So why did we choose to place the wisdom literature here and now? After, like, if you open up your Bible right now, right? Malachi is the last book. If you open up the Hebrew scriptures, Second Chronicles is. Why did we choose? Well, um, one of the things that is fitting is that as Israel failed to be the covenant people of God, like, how did they do that? How did they fail? Well, one, yes, they rejected, right, God's instruction and law. To simplify it, they rejected the wisdom that he
Mm.
gave to them as a nation. But also, just going back to the very first story of our Bibles, Genesis, creation, the two humans, Adam and Eve, rejected the wisdom provided to them for life. And as a result, they experienced the consequences, right, of
Yeah.
rejecting his wisdom and choosing their own. And then right, so begins the downward spiral, and the door of sin kicked wide open. And here's the chaos for humanity.
Yeah.
Well, when you think about, right, the nation of Israel, right, there are so many details, and in many ways they failed the covenant. But to just simplify it, they rejected wisdom, and this is why uh, they are where they are. They are who they are, and so we thought it would be fitting to place the wisdom literature here now, right, so that not just for us to see and reflect on what they missed, but in hopes that we would see that for us, right? Like right now, right? In the dispensation, it would be described that we live in the
Yeah.
revelation of Christ, and in this grace, right? We would learn in the New Testament that we are now part of the covenant children of God. Us right now, regardless, right? Jew, Gentile, whatever. By
Yeah.
faith, we're part of this. And so, right, if you think of Israel who rejected, right, to lay hold of the wisdom that the Creator was giving them, how the story would be different, right? But so is now with us, right? We're in Christ and we're saved by faith, right? No righteousness of our own. But what can we learn from the wisdom that they, right, the wisdom that they themselves rejected? How our lives could be transformed if we lay hold of it and we grasp it. And so
Yeah.
that's kind of just a setting for us, um, for for why we chose to put these books here and now in our journey. Did we
Yeah.
get any
Yeah,
feed-
we got a lot of engagement here. Of course, we have
okay,
a few people just excited for the
okay,
book, absolutely. And then Sister Ilba, she shared this. She said this book is short but powerful. It can be a downer if you're not willing to receive the truth that's put forth. But she actually loves this book.
yeah,
I've grown to love it myself too, Ilba. I recently was able to study it on my own about maybe a month and a half ago, and I
mhm,
was talking to Pastor about it previously, and I was just telling him, I was like, "Oh, this book is so good." I never understood why, why I
yeah,
never really picked it up beforehand. So I agree with that sentiment. I know Ben wrote here. He said Ecclesiastes really puts an emphasis on the absurd aspects of existence. Beyond the edge of normal consciousness lies an abyss of questions we don't typically ask or things we don't typically think about.
yep,
Yeah, and then he said Ecclesiastes asks those questions and brings them to mind. The things we don't consider. That abyss is scary. It maybe seems depressing at times, but it's only so without God. I don't know the meaning of it all, but there is something to it. There's something important going on, and yeah, he shares more of his thoughts as
okay,
well too. But yeah, it's one of those books that I myself too. I feel like a lot with the wisdom literatures, at least in my novice, immature understanding of what the Bible was, I never really knew that this book would be considered part of the wisdom literatures. I always understood Proverbs to be, and I was like, okay, yeah, Proverbs seems like a wisdomy book. It has all its sayings that you put on your walls. There's everything there that's naturally what you will go to or you will see on a keychain or on a bumper sticker or something that you can naturally gravitate to. But Ecclesiastes, I never looked at it as such. I always saw it as was a stopgap book, and I grab pieces here and there in between it. No famous scriptures that were preached from it, or just little passages that I heard before. But um, in in preparing it myself for this as well, and just for understanding the book itself, I've grown to appreciate it a lot and find the wisdom in it, even in all those bleak and moments that people have mentioned already. But
yeah,
we'll get into those.
yeah. And I share in those same sentiments. One, don't remember too many sermons about it or sermon
Yeah,
series. I've seen yeah, there's a very familiar passage that I'll share that this is probably the only passage many of us know from it.
yeah,
And so yeah, I'm sure I've heard that, but um, you know, me younger reading it, it's like, whoa, it's very um there feels such a tension when you read it and such a contrast into everything that we're used to kind of hearing. And then
yeah,
to learn that it's a wisdom literature, um, it's like how, right? Almost like
yeah,
how. So, a comment that I heard this year concerning Ecclesiastes was, "That's just a depressing book." And I
yeah,
think earlier last year, I heard someone say, like almost like, "I wonder why that's in the Bible," right? And so uh, what I wanted to say too is that, and in preparation myself, I'm grateful. I learned so much in my preparation for today's study, and I'm very very grateful. I came across really good resources to kind of just help my brain, or help me wrap my brain around. Uh, uh, the stuff and the style, and that's what becomes really key. There's a way the wisdom is being communicated, and um, if you kind of miss that, then it is very difficult. the wisdom could kind of see contradiction to itself and then to the rest
Yeah.
of wisdom literature. And so our task today is to kind of unravel some of that. And if you haven't ever read Ecclesiastes, I don't want this to replace that for you, but this just become a tool. This is our whole purpose. These studies to become a tool so that you can take with you into the study. And so maybe you already read it and you left with, that was depressing. I don't want to read that again. I'm sure there's a better verse, better, there's something better somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Maybe after this, go back into it. Or if you haven't now, you use this, and I invite you to go in that journey. And so I just want to share this, some things that were very resourceful to me, and I just want to share that with you. If anyone wants a little bit more deeper, I learned a lot from the Enduring Word Bible commentary from David Guzik. He was a pastor for many years, and I also found a teaching series that he did, several parts, and so so much insight, and learned so much from that. And so if anyone was interested to go a little bit deeper, I could help provide those resources to you. Also, of course, from Bible scholar Tim Mackey and the Bible Project, they have their series on YouTube, these short illustrative series where you could that can help you as well too. But Tim Mackey years ago also did a teaching series and commentary on Ecclesiastes, and that was very, very, very helpful. Of course, I have a background Bible commentary, Bible dictionaries. These things are all helpful, and I would say should be tools as
Yeah.
you go and study the Word of God. And me, myself, all these our teachers could help you get good resources for study. And so I learned so much. I'll just try to grab all of that, right, and
Yeah.
and use it to help make sense. And I'm so blessed, and I'm really excited for today. So let's go, right? We're already 22 minutes into the hour.
Yep. Ready.
So again, here, let's do this, right? Our last study, Proverbs, left us with wisdom screaming and shouting and calling out to whoever would listen.
Yeah.
And so I want to read one passage from Proverbs that I think kind of gets to the heart of Proverbs, and passage of scripture that Ben and Pastor Daniel read last week. I'm going to put it up, and I'm going to read it. Ben's going to help me read from Ecclesiastes. But just want to remind us, right? Because Ecclesiastes is only part of this wisdom literature. And here I think there's some just short set of verses here, but this kind of holds the heart of Proverbs wisdom. Proverbs 9 verses 10 through 12. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. For through wisdom, now pay attention, right? Like, look at the wisdom. For through wisdom, your days will be many, and your years will be added to your life. Interesting, right? Right there, just start to meditate. Through wisdom, your days are going to be many, and years will be added to your life. If you're wise, your wisdom will reward you. And look at how it ends. If you're a mocker, you alone will suffer. So already look at the great teaching if you just sat and meditated on that, right? The
Yeah.
person who is seeking wisdom and gaining understanding of the Lord, that person, right? Life is, I'm sorry, life, it seems like life will be right, life will be added there's a blessing for such wisdom. And then of course those that are mockers, right, there's going to be some consequence of suffering, right, for kind of going the opposite direction, right, for not leaning into the wisdom. And
Yeah.
so what would I say? I say, and right, okay, that's kind of straightforward. You can almost say simple in concept, right? Those who
Hmm.
seek the wisdom of the Lord, there's a blessing that's coming to their life. Those who mock, right, not so much. And I think
Yeah.
that logically that is simple, right?
Straightforward.
Um,
Yeah.
straightforward, right? A straightforward wisdom. And then that reminds me of, now we know that the book of Psalms, which we did before, and you got to do together with Ben, right? Ben and Ben.
Yep. Ben
Not Ben and
squared.
Jerry, Ben and Ben, right?
Yes.
Um, Psalm, the book of Psalms, Psalm 1, kind of is also speaking wisdom. It's speaking the same wisdom. And again, while it's not, part of the collection, certainly Psalms, there's much wisdom in there. And so I just want to remind, right? Let's go back one more Bible study and look at Psalm 1. And this is the whole chapter, just 6 verses. Look, blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on his law day and night. That person, right, is like a tree planted by streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers. Now look at the contrast. Not so with the wicked. They are like chaff that the wind blows away. Therefore, the wicked will not stand in the judgment, nor sinners in the assembly of the righteous. For the Lord watches over what? Over the way of the righteous, but the way of the wicked leads to destruction. And so, once again,
Yeah.
right, there's this similar wisdom that is being provided in Psalm 1, that is in agreement, right? Or is in the same line of thought, providing wisdom in the same kind of way, that of the Psalms. And so it's straightforward. And what is it? Right? There's a blessing for right, for those that are leaning into God's wisdom, leaning into the law of God, meditating on it. And the mockers, right? The scoffers, those who are rejecting that, right? They're going to experience the consequence, you could say, of their folly. And so once again, there's this straightforward wisdom.
Yeah.
And so, right, if you read the Psalms and you end Proverbs, that then creates, right, this expectation, right? And this is wisdom from God. If I seek wisdom from God, and I seek, right, to do his will,
Yeah.
there's a blessing attached to that, right? And also it seems natural. There's a natural result in life of when you do the right thing, right?
Yeah.
Things work well, right? That's almost just a natural response.
Of course.
And what would also be true, right? If I do what is wrong, evil, deceit, naturally that's going to catch up to me, and I will just experience the consequences, right, of the
Yeah.
rejection of wisdom, and the consequences of my own folly, right? And so this simple, straightforward wisdom.
I would say also it's kind of like, for me, it makes me remember studying in school, especially with science and math. The if then responses, like if you
Mhm.
do this, then this will
Yes,
happen. And it seems more in that linear perspective,
yes,
that if you do this, then expect this, and if you do that, then expect that, which is easy to grasp for those who are just trying to understand everyday life stuff, right? Like if you make a left on this block, then you might hit traffic. If you make a right, then you avoid it. Someone can easily understand that and they can make the best decision for them. So, which is kind of why Proverbs is so easy to grasp from a wisdom perspective, because it's pretty straightforward and it seems just
yeah,
like a natural roadmap.
yeah.
So,
This plus this equals this minus this equals that, right?
yeah,
There's these two things that are happening, and there's something logical and natural about them. Well, here begins the complex and profound wisdom that Ecclesiastes, and its teacher that we're going to get introduced, wishes to bring to the table, and he's going to do this in a very unique way.
ooh,
Um, the wisdom that Ecclesiastes is going to provide is going to reveal that such life is not that simple, right? There is a simple logic and reasoning and understanding that one can grasp through that wisdom. And so now, Ecclesiastes is going to kind of show us a little bit of the complexities. And so, let's just
yeah.
begin with the title, right? So the title is crazy, Ecclesiastes. Like, I remember that, like, even as a kid, I always remember the title of that book because it's just so
Yeah.
weird. But the English title Ecclesiastes is derived from the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, known as the Septuagint. But the Hebrew word is the word Kohelet. Okay, so in English we got Ecclesiastes. In Hebrew you would have Kohelet. And what is the Kohelet? What does that mean? Well,
Yeah.
it means someone who presides over an assembly, or someone who gathers a group of people together for the purpose and the sake of their learning. So, thus, Kohelet is often translated as uh, teacher or preacher. So, the Kohelet is the person that's got a group of people and is going to teach them. Uh, they're going to learn, and so this is the Kohelet. And so that could be, and depending your the Bible translation you're using, you'll see the word teacher or preacher. And so, I guess
Yeah.
when we get up, right, we're in a service, right, and there's someone who's there leading the way, right, in communication. That's the Kohelet. That's
Yeah.
the teacher. That's the preacher. Today, I'm the Kohelet, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
For those not used to the Bible terminology or the church terminology, then you could think of it as a speaker,
Yeah.
like
The
the
community.
main host or speaker of this event. So
Yeah. So you listen to a TED talk, that person leading is the Kohelet of that crowd and assembly.
yeah.
All right. So now this is interesting. The structure of the book, and I kind of laughed at it, and I like try to force more. But
Yeah.
usually when I've showed the structures of the books, I guess for me, and then them in a narrative form, even when they're long, like Isaiah, you
Yeah.
know, kind of like all these different movements and these breakdowns and transitions. And so I'm like trying to do this for Ecclesiastes. I'm like, wait a minute, I need to be a little bit straightforward, a little bit more simple. And
Yeah.
so
I'll
it's
put it
funny.
up.
I'm not saying this is right. I'm not saying that everyone is going to break down the structure of the book this way, but here it is. The structure of the book of Ecclesiastes.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, when you read it, it'll make sense. It's one piece, it's one section. There's not a bunch of sections. There's different themes, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use key themes to divide it, but I didn't want to divide it into multiple sections by the key themes. And so it's really speaking about one thing, so to
Yeah.
say, and it's from this perspective. And here's the section: it's life under the sun is meaningless. There we go.
Yeah.
And that's actually going to develop into a key theme very soon. But there it is. There is the structure of Ecclesiastes. I don't know if anybody
So
finds that
so
funny.
expiring, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Uh,
cool.
okay, where we're at. Sorry. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we're gonna begin reading, and I'm gonna invite you, Ben, to lead the way in reading, unless I tell you I would like to read something. But if
Yeah.
you could put up, let's go into Ecclesiastes.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I'll start it. So we'll start off Ecclesiastes 1, verse 1. And it reads in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. The words of the teacher, son of David, king of Jerusalem. Verse 2, meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless.
Wow, I was like, what a way, right? What a way to begin a book or anything, a speech, a writing, a book, a
Yeah.
novel. I don't know. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless. And so, again, here begins the complex and profound wisdom that the teacher is going to share in a unique way. But before we get into the wisdom, right? It's important to know that in the very beginning, the first verse that Benjamin wrote, if you could put it back up just so they could see it, verse 1 reveals to us that there is actually someone who is sharing the words of the teacher. Like,
Yeah.
it's so subtle. Look, the words of the teacher. And then it identifies this person, the teacher, as the son of David, a king of Jerusalem. So there's an author, right? Or there's a composer, and this person is putting forth what the teacher has taught. And so, just so you know, right, this person is different from the teacher, is sharing, and in the final chapter, which is 12, it's only 12 chapters, Ecclesiastes. You can read it in less than an hour. You know, in the final chapter, the last words are also then going to be from this author, and you're gonna see after learning from the teacher. So what's really interesting to me, one possibility could be that the person, right, who's putting forth the teacher's words
Yeah.
is just maybe someone who sat in the assembly before the Kohelet, right? It could be just that simple, right? It could be someone who just sat when the teacher taught, listened, and learned, and now wants to share. Or could it be someone who maybe shared life close to the teacher, right? And maybe you know, was with the teacher throughout their years and now has
Yeah.
compiled this wisdom and now wants to share it. So it could be as simple as this is just someone there for the sermon that day and got it and shared it, or someone who's been on the journey a long time with them. But what's important to note, that person is left anonymous, and in some ways the teacher is vaguely described. And so
Yeah.
what does it say about the teacher? It says that the teacher is a son of David, king in Jerusalem. And so that's going to play into the story, right? Or the was going to play into what the teacher is saying. One is identifying that the teacher is a son of David. Um, and so, you know, throughout Christian tradition and Hebrew tradition, there's always the question, right? Our curiosity. So who is this son of David? And so scholarship, right? The brains, the people who spend all their lives, you know, looking into this stuff, right? There's difference of opinions. One way that it's been thought about, that the teacher, this son of David, is no other than King Solomon. Oh, you can pull the slide down, Benjamin.
Yeah, of
Is
course.
other than King Solomon. Um, but it's not. It doesn't say that explicitly in the text. Nowhere. But the reasons for that is, one, he's a son of David, and it says, and he ruled Israel from Jerusalem. And so there would be evidence to say, okay, this has to be Solomon.
Yeah.
Um, but it doesn't say it. Now, as you read the text and some of the things that the teacher shares about his life and, um, his life, it could really fit Solomon. And then the other scholarship is, there's a couple of things in the text, into details that go far beyond what you and I probably care for,
Of
that
course.
would suggest that it can't be Solomon. But um, it's meant for us to think of a king like Solomon, a son of David, right? And so
Yeah.
even though it's not explicitly said, all scholars would say that it's meant for you to kind of envision Solomon. And so whether this was Solomon or not, or maybe just someone has recreated the image and life of Solomon and his wisdom, because we know that Solomon was known for his wisdom as well,
Yeah.
and is now trying to teach and share wisdom through this person of Solomon. And
Yes.
so, whether it is or not, it's okay. We're invited, right, to imagine the son of David, this king of
Hmm.
Jerusalem. And so, we'll play with that today, okay? Right? We'll play with that. That this is Solomon, as we're invited to, in a sense, to
Sure.
believe that this could be right. And so, just want to put that out there. Um, and so, okay, let's get back into
Of
the
course.
statement by the teacher, right?
Yeah. So we'll get back into it.
Right. So just read the first two verses one more time, Benjamin.
Of course. Verse 1, the words of the teacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem. Meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher. Utterly meaningless. Everything is meaningless.
All right,
Uh,
you could bring that down. We'll get into that, but just bring that down right there.
of course.
All right. What in the world? Uh,
Exactly.
right. So, all right, we're okay. This is wisdom literature, right, from
Yeah.
God, and now the teacher is saying everything is utterly meaningless, and so that's a kind of very scandalous way to begin. But to help us, I think it's important, right, that we understand this word meaningless, because he's
Yeah.
literally saying that everything is meaningless. And so let's
Mhm.
go to the Hebrew word. You get the Hebrew word today.
Yeah.
And so this word that we read in English, meaningless, is actually not meaningless in Hebrew. So it's not just a translation of a word, right? Like how
Yeah.
you would say, I don't know. I guess like how I guess I don't know this. Ben, do you know, is there a word for meaningless in Spanish? Just meaningless?
Meaningless? Actually, no.
You know?
I
Well,
don't really know if there's a
well,
word for
anyway,
meaningless.
point is, right, that
Yeah.
we have words, and there's many words we could just translate. This word is this here. And so we get the word meaningless here in English, but this is not the word that is in the Hebrew. The Hebrew word is not meaningless. It actually, if you could put that word up for us,
Yeah,
it's
of course.
the word hevel, and what it means is vapor, like kind of like vapor, like smoke, right?
Yeah.
Or at a breath. And figuratively, it's the word used for vanity.
Yeah.
Okay. And so, what it actually is, what the teacher is saying, he's using a metaphor to try to say something
Hmm.
about life. And so, what he's saying is, hevel, hevel, says the teacher, utterly hevel, everything is hevel. So, right, just everything's like smoke, everything's like a vapor. And
Yeah.
so he's actually using a metaphor to try to convey a truth about life. And so, just to kind of show this, if you go to our Bible translations, there are several um, words used in English translation to try to capture this metaphor, right? That the teacher is using as vapor. Can you put that up? So look, in the ESV, and this is the majority of many familiar English translations. Many of them, including the ESV, use the word vanity.
Yeah.
Okay, vanity. Uh, and then in the NIV uses the word meaningless. The Net Bible, right? And so, just going back to vanity, for vanity, it's meaning the quality of being worthless and futile. The Net
Yeah.
Bible uses the word futile, which means the incapability of producing anything useful.
Yep.
And there's this International Standard Version that uses the word pointless, and the Message Bible, I'm like not that fond of it,
Yeah.
but it uses the word smoke. It kind of like it's probably
Kind of.
using the most literal translation,
Exactly.
right, of this word hevel. And
Yeah.
so,
No, I was gonna say that for me, it also shows a big contrast to what the actual Hebrew word is and to what is being presented, because I feel like when I hear the word meaningless, to me it just thinks of like no purpose, something that just has no purpose. It's meaningless. But hearing the literal translation of the word smoke and vapor, it kind of allows me to picture then what
yes,
is trying to be painted out. So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
And so, right, even though meaningless, right, could have like, oh, I guess that it's pointless. But in one
yeah,
sense, you're gonna see that that's actually a good translation. What
yeah,
the teacher is trying to get at certain things, that's right, or that's the point by saying hevel, this vapor, right, this smoke. Like vanity, the quality of being worthless, right, the futile incapability of producing anything useful.
yeah,
uh, and he's saying everything ISV, pointless. Wow, what a way to start. But here, all right, you could bring that down. But what do we know about vapor, or like a smoke? Um, I like when I thought of this, and I'm trying to picture it. For me, the easiest thing or the quickest thing that came to mind was having a candle, right? And you light a flame, and then after that, when you're done with the candle, what do? To turn it
put
off,
it
you
out,
you
blow it
snuff it
out.
out, right?
Yeah,
Typically, you blow it out. And so when you blow it out, what do you see? This smoky vapor that comes out, right? And I
yep,
remember as a kid doing this, not now. Remember as a kid, well, as a kid, I used to go like this with my finger through the flame, like
yeah,
I go like this,
yeah,
like, like, and then what I would do after it was blown out, I would always try to touch it. And what did I learn? What do we know? You can't grab it,
no,
right? And so look at this, right? So it just using that kind of smoke and vapor from a candle, it's real.
yep,
Not that it's fake, like it's not that it's non-existent. It
exactly.
is real,
You can see
but
it.
it is visible, right?
Yeah,
And also too, depending the kind of smoke, you get a lot of smoke, you can feel it. Like
yeah,
imagine being by a brush fire,
yep,
right? And I've never been, but just and all this smoke is coming, right? You can feel that passing. just like wind, right? Today was like a nice breezy day, and as I was doing a lot of errands today, and I remember coming in on my last errand, and this nice breeze came by, and it just blew right by me. That one I couldn't see, but that one I felt, and then I immediately thought of Hevel,
Yeah.
because I'm like, I can't grab this, I can't lay hold of it.
No.
And so think of this. That is that is what we know about smoke. That's what we know about vapor. It cannot be, right. It cannot be grabbed. It cannot be controlled. This is Hevel. And so, in one sense, Hevel becomes the perfect metaphor, like, for the teacher to use, right, to try to teach his listeners
Yeah.
this wisdom that he's about to l- drop on everyone.
Yeah.
And
No.
so, let's read further and see, what does the teacher mean that everything is utterly Hevel, everything's a vapor.
Of
And
course.
so we're going to actually read most of chapter 1. And I want to do that because chapter 1 actually sets kind of this whole tone for everything. And then from chapter 1, he's just going to go into specific areas of life, right? And kind of just show how, look, it's all hevel, it's vapor. So uh, you could read verses 1 through 6 now.
All right. So, once again, the words of the teacher, son of David, king of Jerusalem, meaningless or hevel. Hevel, says the teacher, utterly hevel. Everything is hevel. What do people gain from all their labors at which they toil under the sun? Generations come and generations go, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun sets and hurries back to where it rises. Wind blows to the south and turns to the north. Round and round it goes, ever returning on its course.
Wow. So now, by what the teacher is going to now describe, right after saying everything is meaningless,
Yeah.
he then is now, here's the invitation, and here starts to set context of what he means by everything is hevel, everything's a vapor, smoke, um, everything's vanity, right? Look, and what does he say? He starts out saying, look, there's nothing to gain for all our work, and then he uses this expression, under the sun. You see it right there? Um, there's nothing. And that was in verse 3. What do people gain from all their labors? Look, what do you gain after all your hard work, right? A life full of hard work. He says, generations come and they go. Look, the earth's still here, but you're not. The wind's blowing here, blowing there, round and round. It's always going. And so I want to introduce the first key thing for us today, and that is this expression that the teacher uses 27 times about in the book, and that is under the sun, particularly life under the sun. And so what does he mean? And this is going to be really important as he's trying to teach in this way. So look, everything's meaningless, right? What do we have to gain for all the hard work? um, Everything is meaningless in this life under the sun.
Yeah.
And so, what does he mean? He means this. He means life considered and confined, look, to just this world under the sun. Look,
Yeah.
precisely in our time here on earth, not in consideration past death. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, look,
Very literal. Like
very,
life under the
yeah,
sun. Yeah.
life under the sun. And look, and life, right? And he
Yeah.
says, look, generations come and generations go. So look, what is he saying? People live and people die, and the world continues to go on without them. What did we gain? What did what did what did the humans gain in their lifetime for all their hard work? And so this is what gets him fired up, right?
Yeah.
Or this is what justifies him in a sense to say everything, everything is utterly hevel, meaningless. So look, we're all coming, but we're all going. And and here's the reality. Look at the wisdom. And we're all coming and we're all good going, and our hard work isn't going to change that. Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah.
Like, have you ever just paused to think about this reality that no matter how hard we work, right, in this life under the sun, we are never going to change that we come and we go, and the earth continues going.
So true.
And so this chapter sets the tone for the rest of the book. And this is why many people, right, if we're unable to like really lean and slow down into the wisdom, the style, the way this is being brought, you literally could just read Ecclesiastes and be like, why did I just read that? That's the most depressing thing that I read. And
Yeah.
and one time's enough for me.
Even take
So
a step further. Some people could read Ecclesiastes and they could just say, well, then why is the rest of the Bible
oh yeah.
purposeful? Or why is there any point to the rest of this if this is literally telling me everything is pointless or everything is meaningless? So,
And so this is part of why I wanted to bring up, right, the wisdom of that we saw in Psalms 1, the wisdom of
yeah.
Proverbs, right? There's a straightforward wisdom that, right, there's a blessing for the righteous, and there's a consequence of destruction for the wicked. And so if you just say, great, I'll just be good, and I just know what I'm going to get in life, and or if I be bad, then I know what I'm also going to get, right? And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you get this weird contrast of wisdom saying, hey man, I'm just telling you, good or bad, it's hevel. And
Yeah.
so what is he trying to say? What is he trying to get at? And so we're not there yet. And so you can't, if you read that in the past and then you stop there, then we miss the wisdom that's yet to be revealed. And
Yeah.
so David Guzik from the Enduring Word Commentary,
Yeah.
all right, he said this about this section from the teacher, right? The teacher said, generations come and generations go. And that's something that is sure. The world's gonna keep on moving like like if you never were here, right? He
Yeah.
said this: life is certain about there are two things certain about life: cradles when we come, and coffins when we go. Life, right? The teacher
Mm.
is summing up everything to these two things:
Wow.
cradles and coffins. And look, and the world goes round and around.
Such a beast sermon series. Kratos and Coffins. It's so
Yeah.
good.
Like, just in all honesty, as I was preparing this and listening, I'm like, man, by the end of this, Ecclesiastes should be a teaching series that every Christian church does.
Yeah.
There's going to be such a wisdom from here that I think is so valuable that we miss. We miss it, and I think it really complicates. Um, uh, I'm not saying we're going to understand everything today, like that I'm going to reveal everything, but what I'm saying is there's something that we're going to be able to grasp as I'm like, man, this should be explored more. And so this would be an awesome series in itself. Um,
It will.
and so, right. So he's like, right. What a downer. Didn't we have that in the comments? Did we have that
Yeah, yeah,
already?
yeah. And we had
People read it, it's like, whoa, it's a
Ilva said it
downer.
was. Yeah, it's a very
And
downer
so,
book.
and so what a downer is this teacher, right? Why is this teacher saying this? And so you could say, you know, does he not believe in God? Right?
Yeah.
Because he's an atheist. And so, well, absolutely not. One, we were already told by the composer, right? Or the one sharing, that this is a son of David, king of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
So there's no way that he's an atheist, right?
Yes.
Like, but the teacher is speaking, look, from a true reality that we all come and we all go. So that's true. Let's not stone the man so early. That is true. But the teacher throughout the entire book is now he's going to share his personal journey and the empty pursuit at the end and trying to find meaning and satisfaction in life. Look, through all the toil and the hard work, he's going to go into the avenues of searching and finding a value through pleasures, through hard work and success and wealth, and even through wisdom. Um, and he's going to share this not from the perspective, look, that God doesn't exist. Remember, he's no atheist, but
Yeah.
more so from the perspective, look at this, when God matters little.
Mm.
Now, think about that. There's a lot of people who do say they believe in God, right?
Yeah.
But the question is, how close do they believe he really is? Or how far they think he is,
Wow.
right? Like in the ancient world, more so, there are less atheists, right? And most of the ancient civilizations, if not all, believed in the gods. The difference was how close, how far, how nice, how how merciful, how not are these gods are. And
Yeah.
so what this teacher is going to do, right, as a son of David, king of Jerusalem, he's going to paint a picture, right, of life under the sun, not that God doesn't exist and he's nowhere, but when you live a life under the sun and God matters little, or from the perspective that God is distant
Hmm.
and not close and not as personal. And so through his journeys and through his explorations, he's going to try to teach a wisdom that everything is meaningless. But what is his goal? So that's the question, okay? So this is our help
Yeah.
here. What is his goal? And so I wrote this down: to provide a wisdom for anyone else who is on the same pursuit, right? If
Yeah.
anyone is on this pursuit or is about to commence it, to try to find, look, the meaning of life under the sun, like anyone who's attempting to try to find, like, meaning, look, of life, but far from God. Like
Yeah.
life under the sun is meant to convey when we live life believing that all there is to life is what happens here on earth in this limited, fleeting lifetime.
Yep.
Like living and believing that all there is to life is confined to here and now under the sun. Yeah, go ahead and believe that, right? We could go ahead and believe that if we wish. But he's about to tear down every idol and false hope if we think that we're going to find true satisfaction of the soul, even through the beautiful things that God gives us through this world. And
Yeah.
so when you read Ecclesiastes and you continue into the chapters, he's going to destroy the false hopes of finding satisfaction in all these things.
So
And what
good.
was fascinating as I was reading this, I'm like, man, that's been me.
Exactly. I was
And
gonna say the same thing.
like that's been me. And
Yeah.
I've been raised that God exists. I was never an
Yeah.
atheist.
Yeah.
I was never an atheist. But I certainly have lived moments in my life where God wasn't close,
Yeah.
where God didn't matter much,
Yeah.
right? And I think we've all been there, even
Yeah.
when we do believe that he exists, right?
Yeah, I think
Let's,
we all can relate to that. Not to cut you off and to
yeah.
intervene, but that's where I feel like we all battle with the grab, right? Because we understand Proverbs as we said is logical, as in if this happens and this will happen, and we all picture that. But if we all really talk about real life, we know that it's
Hmm.
not always if this happens then this occurs, and we see real life and we know that
Yeah.
that is that is really hard to try to find the meaning in it. No matter how good you're doing, no matter what you're doing in your life, it's just very hard to just find that meaning.
Yeah.
Um, and I think we all feel that in different seasons of our life. So I can understand why you would get emotional about this, because it's it's now as an adult that I could realize that there's a
Hmm.
lot of stuff in life that you just can't explain, or it's just very hard to grasp what's it for, like
Yeah.
what was the purpose of this.
Yeah.
So
Right. So now when he says it's hevel, it's like, okay, yeah, talk to me, man.
yeah,
So here's another thing. People either read Ecclesiastes like that was the most depressing thing ever. That's so weird. It seems like a conflict with the rest of everything, right? Of what the scriptures were saying. I've known people to read that and say, that's refreshing. Talk to me.
yeah,
Talk to me, because that's exactly how I
exactly,
felt. It seems very like it seems that this is more the reality that we live,
yeah,
right? And we're hoping for everything else, like we're hoping for the other wisdom that seems to appear of promising so much more.
Yeah.
But if we sat down and talked with people and say, hey, how's this? I wonder how many of us would say, man, it feels like heaven right now.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not, I feel like I'm toiling and getting nowhere.
Yeah.
I'm grasping, I'm trying, and I can't get a hold of this thing called life, you
Yeah.
know? And so go ahead and read verses 8 to 11.
Of course.
Please, thank
Verse
you.
verses 8 to 11. All things are wearisome, more than one can say. The eye never has enough of seeing, nor the ear it is full of hearing. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one can say, look, this is something new? It was here already long ago. It was here before our time. No one remembers the former generations, and even those yet to come will not be remembered by those who follow them.
Man, there's some more hevel for you. Here's,
Yeah.
here's a bowl of hevel. Here's a bowl of hevel. Man, look, our eyes and ears are never satisfying. Why? Because we're always chasing the new. How true is that?
It's so true.
Right? And
Yeah.
look, what's really new, and then look, what is actually so new that we discovered that is changing destiny? Nothing.
Nothing.
I mean, maybe we get to the moon again,
Yeah.
right? Right? You know, maybe that seems exciting, right?
Yeah.
But look, chasing, I mean, and we chase new things that are like, I'm not saying they're not functional, and that's not what he's saying either. Like some of this stuff, he's not going to say that's not functional or needed, but it's this perspective of, look, chasing things, right? Um, our eyes are never satisfied, right? Our ears are never had their fill. It's like we're trying to acquire something that unlocks, right, utter joy and satisfaction and fulfillment of the soul. This is what he's really talking about, right?
Yeah.
And the sad thing is we try to chase that through new things, like in our world today, this would not be in his, but like a new phone, like, right, like can't wait and can't, like, you can't sleep thinking about it, or like all your wealth is going towards it, right, all these accommodations. And then the crazy thing, the new phone is only new till it's not. The new phone's
Yeah.
only new till the next one comes out. Like,
Yep.
man, isn't that hevel? Isn't that a vain, tiresome pursuit? I'm not saying it's not needed. I'm not saying you don't look. We don't need to upgrade on our phone. I'm not saying you don't need to do that, right?
Yeah.
In the bigger picture, if you live life thinking that new things are going to bring satisfaction, man, those new things become old, and then you have to start the pursuit again for what's next. Man,
Yep.
that's hevel.
Yeah. Or even the same analogy, a new phone, but you still use it for the same old things that you use your old phone for.
Sure. Yep.
So,
Yeah,
so
it's
it's
just a
like
new
it's
way to communicate. Like humans
yeah,
have been communicating for for the centuries. Like it's
exactly.
not that new. It's just a newer way to communicate,
Yeah.
but it's just communication in one sense, right? So how much has it changed the destiny? And so if you're thinking that just getting something new might do that, this teacher is trying to tell you, man, that's hevel. And then
Yep.
he goes on to say this. He's like, and yet, he talks about, man, this was verse 11, like, no one remembers the former generations, and even those yet to come will not be remembered by those who follow them. Ooh, no one wants to hear that.
Tough.
Tough.
Yeah.
Like, and we live in a generation where, a lot of people, what do you want to be? I want to be an influencer. Well, this Kohelet over here is saying not many of us will be. And even if we were in our lifetime, the next generation
Yeah.
not going to really honor or remember that.
Hmm.
Man,
It's tough truth because it's stuff that you can be like, yeah, you know what, you're probably right, but it's so hard to hear at the same time.
and so, yeah,
So
right, for sure, there are people who are remembered in history.
yeah,
I don't think that's what he's trying to say, that no one is remembered. But what he's saying is, come on, most are not. And most
yeah,
of us live a life when we die, or those around us die. is actually the day when we're forever forgotten in this life here under the sun.
Yep.
And it was been the past recent years more so. I started to think about like my great grandparents. And you know why I started to think about them? Because I don't know them
Mm.
and I know nothing about them.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming someone else for that, you know? I'm not blaming someone else. But I'm just saying like, man, this is life. How it doesn't take too many generations that from the blood that you come from,
Yeah.
you know nothing about. I'm like,
Wow.
I don't know if my great grandfather was a person of faith or not. Like, I don't know if his father, like what was going. And here's the thing: not too much could have been happening, right? Or so much could have been happening. I don't remember. I don't even know.
Yeah.
And then you think about your own life, right?
Yeah.
He said, "There's nothing to gain from all your toil." It's he's bringing about all this stuff. Look, you're gonna come and you're gonna go, no matter all that you toiled for. And here's another part of the hevel: generations after, you're not even gonna remember. Not just remember. They're not just not gonna remember what you did. They're just gonna not even remember you.
Yeah.
And then look, the world's gonna go round and round. Whoa! And look, in this life here under the sun. And so it's like, holy cow, man.
Yeah, it could be very downer. It could be very depressing too. For the person who try to open the Bible to find inspiration, they open it to this scripture. It could be very, very total opposite feeling.
Yeah,
But it's not like something that's not relatable as we've
yeah.
been saying.
Do we have any comments right now?
Yeah,
Let's
we have a few. We have a few people saying the same thing.
okay.
Lizzie said it was like so relate. She said so relatable for what we're dealing with. We have Ben wrote, "Progress is defined by getting closer to something. So progress towards nothing is not really nothing. The world measures progress by how far from the past we are, but that's just meaningless movement."
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Jocelyn wrote, "Literally nothing matters except
Except except our salvation.
salvation."
Okay.
Yeah. Jocelyn also wrote, "History repeats itself," touching back on that there's nothing new, that everything just occurs over and
Yeah,
over again.
yeah,
So yeah. One last one I think was from Eric. He wrote, "Nothing or everything could have happened, but we're still here." Yeah.
yeah. So let's give a little pushback, right? Like, let's push back. Who are you, oh wise teacher? What do you
Yes.
really know? Like, what have you experienced in life? You kind of just are sounding right now at this point like a man who's bitter from life. you
Yeah,
know, like
exactly.
you sound like maybe you're just a grumpy person. Maybe you had the bad attitude, right?
Go
And so
Wolves. Yeah.
and so your kids are not honoring you, or maybe you sound like maybe how hard did you really work? Um, you just sound bitter from a life, and you seem like you just missed everything, and you couldn't grab or hold on to nothing. You couldn't experience nothing, and so now your conclusions are everything's meaningless, and now you're just trying to project that on us.
Yeah.
So for anyone who maybe was in his class thinking that, like part of his assembly, or maybe if any of us are thinking that, um, the teacher's actually going to argue from a place of credibility.
Yeah.
And, and so he doesn't even have to begin that. It's the person who's presenting his words. The person who presents his words doesn't say, hey, and here's some advice from some bitter man that lived, 10,000 years ago and nobody remembered. This is what he
Yeah.
thinks about life. No. Look at the setup. This was a son of David, a king of Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And then he's going to share the life experiences that the king shared. And so um, he's gonna begin to also show you, wait a minute, I'm not just someone who's bitter, I'm just someone who's lived. And he's going to share that he's lived with opportunity. He's actually going to share
Yeah.
that he's lived with more opportunity than most people live with. And the crazy thing is most of us are hoping to experience what he has so that we can find something. And basically he's trying to tell us, I've been there.
Yeah. I've had it all.
And I want to look, I want to spare you some some suffering, or I want to give you some wisdom so you understand how life is actually really working. Okay, can you finish up verses 12 to 18?
Yeah, of course. Uh, Verse 12. I, the teacher, was king over Israel and Jerusalem. I applied my mind to study and to explore by wisdom all that is done under the heavens. What a heavy burden God has laid on mankind. I have seen all the things that are done under the sun. All of them are meaningless, a chasing after the wind. What is crooked cannot be straightened. What is lacking cannot be counted. I said to myself, look, I have increased in wisdom more than anyone who has ruled over Jerusalem before me. I have experienced much of wisdom and knowledge. Then I applied myself to the understanding of wisdom and also of madness and folly or foolishness. But I've learned that this too is a chasing after the wind. For with much wisdom comes much sorrow. The more knowledge, the more grief.
Hmm. So see, he's putting, he's not just someone, who just, was just a victim of life, so to say, right? He's someone who lived and experienced, and he pursued after wisdom, and he learned much, right?
Yeah.
And so it's from the experience that he's able to draw conclusions, right? And so, like, again, so this viewpoint he has, this isn't coming from the idea that God does not exist, but the viewpoint that God does. He's somewhere, right? But has left humanity down below under the sun with such a meaningless burden to live out. And so he's painting a picture, is what you also have to see. He's intentionally trying to create this picture of life just here under the sun, like this limited view of life here under the sun. So, and to do that, like he says,
Yeah.
look how he paints the picture. The crooked can be made straight, right? Surely a crooked road could be straightened, but that's not what he's talking about. The teacher means the deeper things in life, right? The things that are wrong, the things that are wicked,
Yeah.
injustices. Like, who really can make that straight? And then what we do, all we're achieving here is like in all the wisdom, who can fix it? Like, who can fix the things that seem so broken? And some more helpful, if that's not enough, the teacher says this at the end of that chapter 1. Look, the more you gain in wisdom and understanding, right? So the more you say, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna understand how things work. Look, the more wisdom and understanding, he says, the more aware you become of just the tragic realities of life here under the sun. And so what does that bring? It's just more grief, it's more pain and suffering. And how many of us have ever felt that?
Yeah.
So
It's
again,
true.
the rest of Ecclesiastes, he's going to share from personal experience. Look, that living this life to find meaning, look, in things, to live life in the confinement of under the sun. And also, look, with a God that's not, right? It's not that he's not existent, but he's just there and maybe not mattering much. Then it's all hevel. That's what's chasing. That's what's chasing after the wind. That's what's fleeting. And just another
Yeah.
example, right? Like, how many of us, we're parents of newborns, right? And
Hmm.
when raising that newborn, that child, right, that phase of, right, the sleepless nights, the feeding, right, the changing, those nights all felt so long, right? And
Yeah.
many of them were waiting for them to be over, and then all of it, then it just feels like a blink, and now they're ready to leave the house. They're going to prom, right? They got a boyfriend. They have a girlfriend, uh, right? They know what life's about, and they're ready to take it on, right? You just blinked. When it was happening, it felt right. It felt forever. But now you blinked, and now they're graduating. Some of them are married. You blinked, and now they're married. You blinked, and now they just given you a grandchild.
Yeah.
Who has ever, right, felt that?
Yeah.
That
Eric
is,
Eric wrote that himself in the comments too. You're like looking back at our children's life feels like time flew. And
yep. And look,
exactly.
it flew, and you couldn't grab it. You couldn't slow it down. And how many of us, right, pray we could get moments back? How many people live in the regret of what they missed, right? That they were maybe chasing after this, right? And miss some part of their children's life, even if it's chasing after something for them, for the betterment of their life, right? How many of us so so the picture that he's painting it from a certain perspective, but there's truth in it, right?
Yeah.
Now all of this is to lead us to a greater wisdom and greater truth, but there is just this real truth in these things here. And so Ecclesiastes 2 verse 1, look, he continues.
Yeah.
You can read that, Ben.
Of course. 2 verse 1. I said to myself, come now, I will test you a pleasure to find out what is good. But that also proved to be meaningless. Laughter, I said, is madness. And what does pleasure accomplish?
And you could read verses 10 and 11 of chapter 2. Look, he just in the same kind of line of thought.
I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all of my labor, and this was the reward for all my toil. Yet I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve. Everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. Nothing was gained under the sun.
So here in chapter 2, he moves to another exploration, another pursuit, right? To try to find meaning, right? He's trying to find meaning, right? Satisfaction of the soul. And what is the exploration? It's the exploration of pleasure. And so,
Yeah.
look, he's also a king. We're going to later read of his riches, meaning he would also have no limitation to exploring whatever pleasures he wanted to seek out.
Yeah.
In between these verses 2 and 10, he tells you of all that he was able to acquire, servants, and he was able to grab any pleasure he wanted because of his position. And look what he says. What's his conclusion about pleasure? Is pleasure going to find the meaning? Is he going to find the meaning of life in the pleasure? No, it's vanity.
Yeah.
And that's key thing number 2. Pleasures are meaningless. Pleasures are vanity. Look, in the context of life just being here under the sun and God is distant. He said he denied nothing that his eyes desired. What could that mean? Right?
Yeah.
He was able to taste, he was able to lay hold of whatever. And how many of us live life this way?
Yep.
Right? How many of us live in this way? If I could lay hold of this, right? If I had the opportunity to taste this, to experience this, then I would find the satisfaction. And so look at the wisdom in this. Pleasure is meaningless.
Yeah.
What could be
I was gonna say it's cool because he kind of takes this philosophy too. I mean, the people who study philosophy back in the day, they understand Hinduism is that it's seeking that pleasure is the meaning of life. Everything that you want to do, just go ahead and do because that's the purpose of where life is. So life is best experienced or it's
Yes.
best good is in
True.
seeking all his pleasures and enjoying all his pleasures. And he kind of takes that and he puts it through the ringer. He's like, well, that's the truth. He's like, I've been there. I've seeked all my pleasures and I've acted upon every single desire I had, and it still led to nothing.
Yeah.
And he
right.
kind of refutes that argument right there.
Yeah. And so what would he be trying to communicate? There's still a void there.
Yeah.
He could not say, hey, I got the pleasure and I'm satisfied. This is what he's trying to say by it's meaningless. He touched, he tasted, he saw, he experienced, and there's still this emptiness in that. Can you read verses 13 and 16 of chapter 2?
Yep, of course. Verses 13 through 16. I saw that wisdom is better than folly, just as light is better than darkness. The wise have eyes in their head, while the fool walks in darkness. But I came to realize that the same fate overtakes them both. Then I said to myself, the fate of the fool will overtake me also. What then do I gain by being wise? I said to myself, this too is meaningless. For the wise, like the fool, will not be long remembered. The days have already come when both have been forgotten. Like the fool, the wise too must die.
So he acknowledges in the opening that wisdom is better than folly, right? Like, because he also told us in the beginning, he pursued wisdom. So he's also trying to say that he did do his exploits of pleasure, right? And he also learned that being a little bit wise was better than just being outright foolish because you can. He does say, right, light is better than darkness, right?
Yeah.
But then look, in the context of life under the sun, right? Man, if you're a fool, you die. But even if you're a sage, you die too, man. It's
It's
like, man,
true.
that's right. Like, so yeah, life, right? Life on the sun, it's better to be wise in. But hey, man, here's another reality. The wise and the fool both are gonna die. And here's key theme number 3. And this is just true. The wise too fade away. And so
Yeah.
he's not trying to say that wisdom means nothing. But look at this truth. Wisdom's not going to keep us alive forever either.
No.
Certainly, being foolish could cut your life short, but being wise is not going to change the true reality that generations come and generations go. And so just think about it. If with my limited view of, you know, of life just being about what happens here on earth, man, then that is meaningless, man. What if, if I'm gonna
Yeah.
die too after being wise, you could have that perspective, right?
Yep.
And so look at now what he says. Look, he's just remember he's still. I want you to know he's painting this picture, right? Look at what he says in 17 of that same chapter, verses
Yeah.
17 to 19.
Verse 17 through 19 says, "So I hated life because the work that is done under the sun was grievous to me. All of it is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. I hated all the things I had toiled for under the sun because I must leave them to the one who comes after me. And who knows whether that person will be wise or foolish? Yet they will have control over all the fruit of my toil in which I have poured my effort and skill under the sun. This too is meaningless."
Wow. Look, so we live right our entire lives building the careers, the businesses, right? To try to get a success many times to provide for our families that we love so we can leave them inheritance. But then he tells us of another reality that is very true. But who even knows if all of their success that is left behind is actually going to be honored and stewarded in a wise way that it becomes something more than the person who planted it.
Yeah,
and
it's
and the
true.
reality is that we also know that that is true too, where someone builds something so much and then they leave their inheritance to their kid, and it doesn't take but long for all of that, right, to just be wasted away. He says,
Yeah.
look, man, if this is all that's going to happen in life, man, that's hevel.
Mhm. And he's
And
leaving no stone unturned either. It's not like he's trying to just approach one side and then not the other. No, he's saying, okay, well, if you're from this camp, it's still meaningless. And if you believe this thought process, well, even that's meaningless too.
yeah,
So
look what he says in verse 20 to 23.
yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So my heart began to despair over my toilsome labor under the sun. For a person may labor with wisdom, knowledge, and skill, and then they must leave all they own to another who has not toiled for it. This, this too is meaningless, and what a great misfortune. What do people get for all the toil and anxious striving with which they labor under the sun? All their days, their work is grief and pain. Even at night, their minds do not rest. And this too is Hebel.
Man, just the example, right? Like the very common example: a dad builds this whole empire, leaves it to his son, so his son could have a better life than he did, but his son didn't learn anything about hard work, dedication, and then blows
Exactly.
loses the family
Blows it
business
all.
overnight. And like, so he says, all the days of their work is grief and pain. Even at night, their minds do not rest. And how many that is related together, right? um, you're building, you want to leave this, and then you start to realize who I'm leaving it to is not ready for it, doesn't understand it.
Wow.
You could have that hevel moment, Like, oh, I just did all of this for this, and look, it's gonna slip right through our fingers. And so key theme number 4, and we only have 6. What does he say about achieving success, right? Because in this sense, he's talking about like successful acquiring, right? Building something. Well, in this, right? And life under the sun in this context, right? This limited, time here on earth, success is meaningless.
Yeah. It's true.
One of the things that you're going to see him do a couple of times, and you should pick it up. Throughout Ecclesiastes, the teacher is gonna right. He's gonna say all these. He's gonna explore, right, what's gonna be an empty pursuit, right? Life under the sun, right? All your toil, right? All the right? And then he's gonna say, right after all of that, right? He's gonna say, oh, it's meaningless. So then you know what? This is what you have, right? Like, what does a man gain for all of his toil? Like after all his toiling, right? He's gonna say it's all meaningless, but then he's gonna say this and read verse 24, and you'll see this happen a couple of times.
Yeah. It says, a person can do nothing better than to eat and drink and find satisfaction in their own toil. This too I see is from the hand of God.
And so what he's saying here, right? You do all this toil, you do all this work. You know someone is going to blow it after you. You know you're going to die. You know no one's going to remember you. So you know what? I guess your reward, right? In this limited world under the sun, then there's nothing better for you than to do is just, eat, say a prayer, drink, and just be content in that. And you
Yeah.
know what? Just take that as the gift of God. So remember again, he's painting this picture, not that God doesn't exist, but he matters little. So you
Yeah.
know what? Pray, eat your meal, and just be happy. And look what he's saying. Look at what he's painting. There's nothing better. Really, really. Is there nothing better? Is that what he's trying to say? There's nothing better than to just say a prayer, eat your dinner, and is right? Is that what the meaning of like is this what life is all about? Remember, he's trying to teach us something.
Yeah. I think that's the cool thing is like remember like you're saying we're coming from this theme of under the sun and all this stuff and he's trying to paint it to everybody and saying, hey, so if life is this, if this is life,
If this is
then
just
if this is just life and this is just how it is, then
yeah,
what's the purpose? Like what's the
that's the
point?
best that you got then.
Exactly.
Enjoy your meal.
I saw some good comments from people too, just to take a quick moment to stab into them. Deacon Lindsay said our whole culture is wrapped around this, and that was speaking about just the successes of life and just everything that we try to accomplish and we try to gain for, we try to strive for the desires that we have. It's true. Our whole life, we can see it around us in our day-to-day actions. It's really based off of this. People are all trying to gain that clout. We're trying to reach that goal. There's other comments here. I saw a good one later on down the line. Another one from Sister Lindsay. She wrote that she saw on Tyra Marie's IG, and if you know Sister Tyra Marie, she does financial assistance.
Wow, look at that. There it is.
Sure, 90% of all generational wealth is gone by the third generation.
Look at the teacher was speaking 2,000 plus years ago, and it's true.
Yeah.
Right? He's speaking some truths here. And so, okay, so by all this style of teaching, right? Because this is a style. He's doing this in this way, but it's to bring us to a fuller reality of life and wisdom. Okay. Because if not, if he ends just like this, then yeah, it's all hevel. Nothing, like you said, everything then is pointless. The best thing that you have is thank God for your lunch.
Yeah.
Cross your fingers. You don't, something bad don't happen to you. But the teacher's job here, what he's trying to do, and this is what you and I need to grasp right now, as I was saying before, like I know what it is to be this person. And so he's trying to destroy any hopes in the empty pursuit of these treasures in life. So he's going to show, right, us by experience and wisdom what he has learned. Here, let me quote David Guzik on what the teacher means.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what David Guzik says. This is what the teacher means. If you're going to restrict life under the sun without having an eternal perspective, then you know what? You're just stuck in the same place.
Mm.
Look, the best you can find is how to live a better, meaningless life.
Wow.
Oof. Wow, right? The best, right?
Yeah.
If we just restrict to life being limited to our time here on earth, right? If that's all life is what we live here, then the best thing we're going to find is how to live a better, meaningless life.
Yeah.
And so, um, let's go to our okay. So let's go to that maybe the most well known passage of Ecclesiastes. So this
Of
one you
course.
might be familiar with, and that's found in chapter 3. I'll read this one, okay, Ben? We could
All
just put
right.
it up. Ecclesiastes 3, verses 1 to 4. Look, there's a time for everything, a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, right? A time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. And he goes on, and that's, we might be familiar with that, right? I didn't finish it, but this is right. We're familiar with this passage. And so, what is the teacher getting at? Well, right, in the context of everything that he's been discussing, he's again highlighting. Look at this: the monotony and the vain, repetitious realities of life. So, look, if you're waiting for something more, this is it. What's life? In life, there's times for everything, but it's all the same, and it's all the same over and over again. We mourn, we dance, we weep, right? We laugh, we live, we die, we sow, we reap. Like, this is it. And so this is the context in which he's presenting this.
Yeah.
And so, sure, we can spice things up with some vacations. I just went away for 2 weeks, had a great time. And I was
Yeah.
sharing this with Ben, because this has happened to me the past couple of years. I don't know when, but it's been recent. I just want to share it.
Yeah.
I just realized I was able to put a word to it. I was able to label what's happening to me. I literally, when I'm about to go like away on a vacation, or let's say a getaway or something, or do something right pleasurable for me, my family, I literally now realize I've been living in a moment of hevel. What do I mean? Every time now when I'm about to go away, particularly when I'm packing, right? So if I'm packing tomorrow, if I'm
Yeah.
packing, if I'm packing today for tomorrow,
Okay.
something always happens to me, and it's crazy. And I asked my wife the last time, does this happen to you? So if you're out there, if this happens to you, let me know. Now, we all know that a vacation is going to end, right? We all know that. But every time that I'm packing, I think about, as I'm packing, this is going to be short lived. And I already know that as I'm packing to go, I'm going to be standing in the future, packing to leave. And I'm going to remember when I was thinking about packing to go and knowing that it was going to end.
Oh, wow.
And I told my wife the last time, love, this happens to me recently all the time. When we start packing to go, I'm going to tell you, remember when I told you about this? And I'm going to, I literally was going to bring her into the hevel moment that I had. And this was not the last time, because this happened, like earlier last year. I think it was last year. When the time came for us to, I told her when we were going about this, when we were packing to come back, I said, love, this is it. This is the moment that I already felt.
Yeah.
I
Like you're
said,
living in two places at one
yes,
time.
living in two places at the same time. And in this
Yeah.
preparation of the study, I'm like, oh, I'm just experiencing hevel, like
Mm-hmm.
that. I know that it's fleeting. I'm not going to hold it. And if
Yeah.
I'm not careful, I would say, so then it's meaningless.
Wow.
Like, I could almost, because I'm feeling that, before I go, I could already count it as meaningless,
Yeah.
because I know it's going to end. That's crazy, right?
It's
Anyone?
true. It's nuts. It's cool because it's like that. I see a few people in the comments where yes, always. uh, But it's true. It's that sense of feeling. That's what Hevel is. It's a great way to describe it. It's that thing that you know is there. It has purpose. It's something you can touch. It's something that you can see. It's something that's there. But it's so fast fleeting that it's so quickly gone. As easy as it there, it's as easy as it's gone. So it's hard to just hold on to it. You can't build your life around that vacation. You can't stretch that out for years and years to come. There's an end point to it. So while you're packing to it, you're like, is there even a point for me to pack for
Yeah.
this if I
Yeah,
know
it
it's
almost
gonna
feels
end
like
anytime
pointless.
soon? Yeah.
Yeah. And so look, that's how the word has been translated, hevel, in different translations. Pointless, vanity, right?
Yeah.
Meaningless, like, and so in one reality, that is true. It
Yeah.
is meaningless in one. But the teacher wants to bring us to another reality that could also exist and also be true, but be fulfilling.
Yeah.
So look, right. So how does he end that section of those famous verses, verses 9 and 10? I'll read them of Ecclesiastes 3. And I'll just probably start moving a little bit quicker now so we could finish. But look, he goes, what do workers gain for their toil? Well, he already said nothing, right? He's like, he goes, I have seen the burden of God. I have seen the burden God has laid on the human race. So remember, wow. So he's saying God has laid that burden on humans. So again, it's not that God doesn't exist, but he doesn't seem to matter. He doesn't seem to care. But then in the very next verse, here's when the teacher, 3 chapters later, he begins to introduce that, you know what? There is a way to live with the perspective of life only being what happens here under the sun. But now he introduces there's another reality that you can live and know that there's actually more. And then verse 11 of the same chapter, he then says this. It's like, whoa, wait a minute. He says, he has made everything beautiful in its time. Wow. See, if you live life under the sun, only thinking about your time, the time you spend, right? Then that is also, look, that's a limited, such a short amount of time, right? Uh, for all things got to happen, one could say, right? My small time of life here on earth, right? And to say God has to do everything beautiful, in my hands, at my table, in my house, during my lifetime, for him to be God, oh, that's such, like, real, like, really, I'm gonna set that expectation as how
Yeah.
this is how the world needs to work. So he now switches and says, look, he has made everything beautiful in its time. So look, time now goes beyond, and life goes beyond my time. And then he says this, he has also, yeah, there's a burden, right? There's this limited, time we live on earth, and it's just this burden he spoke about, right? In verse 10. But now he says, but he has also set eternity in the human heart. Whoa. So now he introduces, but God has placed something that is not limited to life here under the sun. He has set eternity in the human heart.
Mm.
And then he's going to tell us a truth and a wisdom that I think we all do need to embrace. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from the beginning to the end. In other
Mm.
words, that's his business. That's his
Yeah.
business. I remember a couple of years ago, I had this reality like, man, I am so finite. Like, I do live a life, right, subjected to, my personal time under the sun.
Yeah.
And yes, I know God has purpose in my life, but all that he wants to do, I am but dust, a speck of dust into the plans of God that he has for all of eternity.
Yeah.
And then how can I or anyone judge God, right? Look, judge anything about God, his goodness, his justice, his mercy, to what I see and even to what I experience,
It's true.
right? Like, and I remember having that reality. I'm like, whoa. It does make it then great to know that he is personal. This is the revelation of the rest, right, of all of Scripture, that he is mindful of man. This is what the psalmist said. Who is man that you're mindful of him, right? The teacher here is just trying to paint a picture as if we live like he's not. right? And live
Exactly.
from that perspective that he exists, but he doesn't matter much. And so I need to find satisfaction for myself. I need to find what the meaning of life on my own. So that, yeah, all of that's going to be hevel. And so here he introduces that he has set eternity in the human heart. And look, we don't always understand and we can't fathom, all that God does, or what he's doing from the beginning to the end. But in a sense, what the teacher is going to do is he's going to invite you to trust that. And so what is he? So this is going. I want to present this as a key theme. He put eternity in the heart of the human. So he has also enabled man to grasp the greater wisdom past his limited life here under the sun.
Mm-hmm.
So even though, look, I won't physically live it, I can grasp it. How? Key theme number 5, by having an eternal perspective.
Yep.
There it is. Eternal perspective. Key theme number 5, and we only have one more to go. And so look, he puts that here in chapter 3, and then he says, but hold on yet. Hold on. There's more hevel for you to know. There's more hevel that I want to share with you in case you don't trust that, and you're like, no, there's some other stuff I could still try, and maybe I can grasp the meaning or grasp the satisfaction. He's like, and so he continues down. Ecclesiastes 3:14-17. You can read that one, Ben.
Yeah, it says, I know that everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it, and nothing can be taken from it. God does it so that people will fear him. Whatever it has already been, and what it will be has been before, and God will call the past to account. And I saw something else under the sun. In the place of judgment, wickedness was there. In the place of justice, wickedness was there. I said to myself, God will bring into judgment both the righteous and the wicked, for there will be a time for every activity, a time to judge every deed.
Yeah. So right there, he continues with the eternal perspective. So that's so there in chapter 3. This is where he's like, he's revealing the greater wisdom, right? Everything that God does will endure forever. So there is something that is eternal, and look, nothing's going to add to that, take away from it. But he does, look, God does so that people will fear him. So remember, it seemed like this teacher was going against, right? It seemed like he was going against the wisdom of Proverbs. He's going against the wisdom of Psalms. But here, look, he's coming into agreement. What God is doing, though we lack understanding, right, at times, he does it so that people will fear him. And then he kind of concludes this with, you know what? God will bring into judgment both the righteous and the wicked, for there will be a time for every activity, a time to judge every deed. And boom, here it is. If that's true, right? If this is the wisdom that now he's placing, right?
Yeah.
Then is everything meaningless? But let him take you deeper into the hevel. I'll read Ecclesiastes 4 verse 8. Like, he tells this little story. There was a man alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil. So he doesn't have a son, doesn't have a brother. Kind of like there's no help. That his eyes were not content with his wealth. So he's working hard, but look, he's not content with all he has. For whom am I toiling, he asks, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? This too is meaningless in a miserable business. So kind of paints this picture of guy working hard. He doesn't have brother or son, right? And so he's got a lot of wealth, but man, if he doesn't have people, then what enjoyment is all of this? Then he goes on to kind of goes deeper in this thought of, acquiring wealth. Look in chapter 5 verses 10-11, he says, whoever loves money never has enough. Ooh. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. Man, if we would all be honest, right, and say, man, how many of us thought that if I had a little bit more, I would be happy?
Yeah.
Right? I would be happier, right? Or it would help a lot of things. And it does. And here's the thing with money. Money, when you get more money, it does help with a lot of things. But look what he continues to say. He goes, this too is meaningless. As goods increase, so do those who consume them. And what benefit are they to the owners except to feast their eyes on them? And so in one sense, yeah, while money and acquiring wealth can fix and help things, it also could actually create just a bigger hole, right? Create a
Yeah.
bigger appetite. Now
More
he's not,
money, more problems.
yep, yep. And because you
So,
now also have to steward everything you possess.
yeah.
That's the thing. Most of us can't manage a little. This is true. But then we acquire wealth, which allows us to get more. And we have such a poor stewarding, right, practice and
Yeah.
habit that we can't manage even when we get wealth. And that just could create worse problems for us. And then some of us, yeah, we know how to steward, but now this love of money, like whoever loves money never has enough. It actually could create, if you're not careful, your wealth can actually create you to only seek more. And then he says, this is meaningless. This is vanity.
Yeah.
He's not saying that poverty is the solution, nor is he saying that having property doesn't help us, right? Like doesn't, in possession for
Yeah.
survival here in life under the sun. But what he is saying is it doesn't solve all voids. And if you're not careful, it can create deeper ones
Yeah.
inside you.
Another way of saying it is that what he says is that even that like you said, the property security and all that stuff is still not the meaning. It's
Yeah.
meaningless. It's not the end goal. So
So here's key theme and the last one, number 6. Loving money without constraint is meaningless, right? Like if you can't hold yourself with how much you love, then that's gonna be heavy for you too. You're gonna continue chasing, you're gonna continue reaching, acquiring, and never being satisfied.
and this is big for a lot of us. I mean, a lot of people nowadays too. I feel like with more and more technology, it comes out more and more pressure from just seeing the world around us. When it comes to success, finances, and everything, it's very easy to get caught in the motions of, am I doing enough? And do I need to be doing more? Do I need to be getting more? Do I need to be in a different place?
And
So I
even in
feel,
yeah,
yeah.
and
Go
even
ahead.
even just in the sense of like satisfaction with acquiring that which you thought you needed,
Yeah,
I would say more, in my experience, right, just being around people, and look, with the perspective that God does exist,
yeah,
um, there are a lot more times where we're praying for someone to get a job, right, get a promotion, and it happening, but very few testimony of their contentment after they get, right,
mm.
after they step into all that they prayed for and wanted.
True.
It usually comes back of the realities of the frustrations that are still present, right? The challenges that still remain, even with promotions and even with jobs. And that's a true reality that I can testify of, you know?
Yeah,
And so I wouldn't say that it wasn't God who opened the door. I would just say that if our perspective was this was gonna fix everything and this, getting this new job was gonna relieve me from all the problems in the old job, well, you just went from working with this group of humans to a new set of humans.
yeah.
If you're following the wisdom here, uh, this world just kind of right, it repeats itself.
You're under
That's
the sun. You're under the sun still, no matter
yeah, still under
what.
the sun. You didn't right. We didn't get to the moon yet. It's still life under the sun here.
Yeah.
So let's continue.
All
Right.
right.
So this is all to lead us that the meaning can only be found in gaining the wisdom of that eternal perspective that he introduced in chapter 3. See, the eternal perspective is going to offer like hope in the meaningless, hope in what appears and sometimes is truly vain. Like it's going to be the eternal perspective is going to offer like hope and painful reality of this life under the sun.
Mm.
So look at the teacher's wisdom in chapter 7. I'll read this.
All right.
Considered what God has done. Look, who can straighten what he has made crooked? Remember, right? From one perspective,
Yep.
just complaining about everything that's crooked. And here's some just eternal perspective. Who's going to straighten what God has made crooked?
Mm.
Look what he says. When times are good, be happy. When times are bad, consider this. God has made the one as well as the other.
Wow.
Oof. I tend not to walk around with that reality.
Yep.
When I tend to walk around with just the reality that when things are good, I am blessed by God. And so what he's not trying to say that that's not true. No, when you are, right? When you are blessed. When things are good, be happy. That is from God. But he also wants you to consider this truth, that God has made the one as well as the other. Therefore, no one
Yeah.
can discover anything about their future. He says, and you know what? Here's a reality too. Like, we really don't know how all of this works, right?
Yeah.
Like God could be doing so many more things, right? Like, who's gonna straighten what God made crooked? And like, how many of us realize afterwards that it was that crooked thing that actually led us to the straight thing? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Right? Like, how many times God has allowed something to be quote unquote crooked, all for the purpose to then bring us into something that was of His will, and we've just already counted it out because it doesn't feel, smell, taste how we desire it to be.
Yeah. Our finite minds on what a blessing really is, right? Like we
Yeah,
look.
so that there's what he's trying to bring. What is a
Mhm.
blessing?
Yeah.
Like like what is the blessing of the Proverbs that we read about? What is the blessing of Psalms 1 that we read about? Like, how are we interpreting that? Because for the most part, I interpret that I just do what's right and I get blessed. And my definition of blessed is everything goes right here for me right now in life
Yeah.
under the sun. And so look at this. Look, he goes on to say this in chapter 8, verses 7 and the first part of 8. Since no one knows the future, who can tell someone what else is to come? Like, you don't know, you don't even know your own future. And here we are. Like, many of us are quick to like, and no one has power over the wind to contain it. There's that hevel. So no one has so no one has power over time of their death either.
Yeah.
So, okay, this is what I believe the wisdom is from the teacher here in this section. And after this, we'll be wrapping up. We need to stop pretending. I also personally, this is me personally believe that we can create a false sense of faith. And what do I mean by that? This false sense of faith that, right, when things are crooked, right, according to us, God will do it, right? God, don't worry, God's going to do it. Don't worry, God's going to do it,
Yeah.
right? Why? Just because God, we also know that He can, right, do it.
Hmm.
And but it's because we also don't want Him to do anything else. And so
Mm.
I think that could be at times a false sense of faith, just believing that God's going to do it because He can do it, but it's really only because I don't want Him to do anything else.
Wow.
And so I wouldn't be surprised if tragically much of what we have considered to be faith was in reality the total opposite. We mistrust godly sovereignty, and then we
Mm.
trade that in for false faith. And then there's a false sense of faith that He will do it all because I believe that He can,
Mm.
and simply because He's able. And it's like, well, wait a minute, is
Playing
that
make believe.
yeah, like is 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 that what faith is? Now, God, can He do it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But is this just about, can you believe it enough? And if you have enough faith that you believe it enough, then He's going to do it. And so is that really faith? Or is it that you're just so scared that if He doesn't, you don't want to sit with that reality? So you'll just believe that He can, or we'll start saying that into other people's lives as well. Oh, don't worry about it. You don't want nothing bad to happen to them. Just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But
God
in this,
got you.
yeah, God's got you. But in this
Yeah.
wisdom of what this teacher is saying, it's not that simple. Life doesn't just work that way. Look at this 8:14. There is something else meaningless that occurs on earth. The righteous who get what the wicked deserve. There it is.
Yep.
Wait a minute. I'm righteous. If I just have faith, then I'm going to get something out of it. The wicked, look, who get what the righteous deserve. This too is hevel. And you know what? For many, this is the most difficult realities here in life under the sun. And again, at first glance, this passage seems like a contradiction to the wisdom of Psalm 1 and the wisdom of the Proverbs, right? Are not those who walk away from the wicked and apart from sinners, are not those who delight in the law of the Lord, the righteous, are those not supposed to be blessed? And the wicked experience the destruction of their own folly? Well, are these words of the teacher? Like, well, Like, it almost seems like these words of the teacher, are they not in contradiction to the prior wisdom of God? And I'm going to tell you, no. The teacher's words are actually also a true reality and a true wisdom. These words are not in contradiction to the Psalms and the Proverbs. But what we need to understand is they also live alongside them.
Yeah.
Both can be true, and both are. There are times when the righteous are blessed, look at this, within the confinement of life here under the sun. But what the teacher is going to reveal to you is that the word bless is not, God blessing us is not confined to that. And so sometimes the righteous do. But you know what? Here's a true reality that he has seen. And you know what? If we're honest, we have seen it too, where righteous
Yeah.
people suffer.
Yep.
And tragedy happens to them. Look, if you never experience, right, if you never embrace this wisdom from Ecclesiastes, it is going to be so difficult for you to understand what's happening.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that if you grab this wisdom, then you understand exactly what God's doing. No, the wisdom here is just that we don't know. And we have to be okay. The wisdom is we have to be okay with not knowing what God is going to do and not pretend like we always do or
Yeah.
accept the expectation that this is what he has to do. Because I have that much faith, that's what's really pushed now. Most people are not saying because I'm that righteous, but with the line of thought of the wisdom, right, of Proverbs and Psalms, the righteous, right, there's this blessing. And so here's the thing, it is true. It is true that what if something tragic happens to the righteous here on earth? It's like, oh man, I guess it wasn't true. Well, no, the teacher is presenting us this other true reality within the eternal perspective thought. And so that's how he'll end. And that's how we're about to end.
Yeah.
And so let's go to the final chapter here. So just kind of
Go ahead.
to bring all of this. So how the teacher is going to end? How's he going to end, right? This assembly, this gathering. And you find this in chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. This is just the first thing of kind of his concluding words. Look how he ends. So what do you have to do, right? Look what he says. Remember your Creator in the days of your youth. He's telling you to remember the Creator when you're young. Before the days of trouble come and the years approach you, when you will say, I find no pleasure in them. He's actually trying to tell you as a youth, you need to grasp the concept of the Creator. Look, because if you don't grab a hold of the concept of the Creator when you're young, before you know it, time is going to flash by you and you're going to be running around saying, life is meaningless. There's no pleasure here.
Yeah.
Like, and how many people live life that way? They live their life trying to find the pleasure because they missed God when they were young.
Yeah.
So look, before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars grow dark, right? This metaphor, like, and the clouds return after the rain. He says, remember your Creator before you slip into the limited life under the sun mentality. Remember the Creator before you miss the wisdom and start a life on an empty, vain pursuit and realize it's time to die and return to the dust, but missed the greater truth. And then you end your life saying, and in verse 8, we don't have it, but he basically concludes with you shouting, meaningless, meaningless, says the teacher, everything is meaningless. So look, remember God before, remember God. Sorry, I don't even know what I wrote there, but just, right? Remember God, your Creator. This is to be your perspective. And then now the book is going to end with the author who kind of, right, who introduced us to this king, the son of David, and his words. So, right, you know, who was this author? We don't know. He's anonymous. Options are he's someone who just sat as the Kohelet, the teacher, taught. And so now the teacher's done speaking. He's ended his teaching, his sermon. And so look what this person says, beginning at verse 9.
Yeah.
Not only was the teacher wise, but he also imparted knowledge to the people. He pondered and searched out and set in order many proverbs. It's another thing he did. The teacher searched to find just the right words, and what he wrote was upright and true. The words of the wise are like gold, their collected sayings like firmly embedded nails given by one shepherd. I was like, what are like goats? Basically, it's a
Yeah.
stick that does have kind of like some sharp spikes on it, but shepherds use that to kind of keep their, their cattle and their animals kind of in line and in the right direction. So look, the words of the wise, wisdom keeps, you know, um, keeps us, together. Look, be warned, my son, of anything in addition to them. So now this person is saying, look, what the teacher taught was true, and be careful of anyone trying to add now to this wisdom you just learned. Look, of making many books there is no end, and much studies wearies the body. He's letting you know, oh, don't worry, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to write as if they found the secrets to satisfaction here. There's going to be many people who are going to write contradictions to what this, to what the Kohelet just taught. But he says, but much study wearies the body. Some of us people are just tired, just trying to find. There are some people just book after book after book trying to find the secrets, right?
10 steps to a happy life.
10 steps to a happy life, 10 steps to get rich quick, 10 steps
Yep.
to all these things, right? And then just missing it. So he warns, look, now all has been heard. Wow, he's telling basically all has been heard. The teacher, but the teacher shared in many ways, this is all you needed to hear. Here's the conclusion of the matter. Wow. The student got it. The student, right? The listener, the one who was in his class, fear God and keeps his commandments. And look at this. For this is the duty of all mankind. Wow. So look, right? From the limited perspective of life is only what happens here under the sun, right? Nothing matters. But here, look, fear God, keeps his commandments, for this is the duty of all mankind. Wow. So if you were living life, chasing satisfaction and all these empty pursuits, yeah, that's hevel. But what if you lived in the fear of God, keeping his commands, and then knowing that this is your duty? This is the reason why we live. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. So what's the conclusion, man? That this does matter. In one sense, it doesn't, right? If all life is the life we live here on earth and nothing after, then yeah, that doesn't matter. That's what the teacher was trying to paint this picture. Yeah, you can live like that. And I'll show you how empty this stuff is from that perspective. But when you do it from here, fearing God, keeping his commandments, that's your duty. Oh, then this truly matters.
Yeah.
So imagine life lived in the pursuit of, imagine life lived in the pursuit and duty of keeping God's commands. What about pursuing the command to love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and the command to love your neighbor as yourself? Then yes, yeah, we all die, right? Still cradles and coffins, but how meaningful from such an eternal perspective. And that's the wisdom of the Kohelet, the teacher. It's like, I thought about this, and last thing I say, I know it's 10 o'clock, right? So now when I go on vacation, and we just went, I remember about to have that moment. I'm packing, I'm like, oh my God, I already know. I was feeling the smoke. I was standing in the smoke.
Folding t-shirts and just
Right?
feeling
And
the weakness.
in one reality, this thing is going to happen so fast. Look, it's over. Right now, I feel it. I could almost bring myself to it. Look, it's done. I remember I was wishing to go away, and right now, it's done.
Yeah.
Right? Living in both those realities. But when I was leaving, I thought about what we were going to do. And look, the family we were going to see. And look, I changed my perspective that, oh, this is not just life under the sun. We have an opportunity to experience our family, and God has blessed us with this. So this is not meaningless. This is not hevel. This can be filled with so much of God and so much satisfaction through that perspective.
Yeah.
And so there we go. There's Ecclesiastes.
That's good. I mean, it's really good. I think that's I think that's the best way to sum it up. Is that this whole book, if you just read it for just bits and pieces, you'll see that it could really feel like there's no purpose and nothing like that. And then just knowing that, but fear the Lord and obey His commandments, and in that truth in itself, it makes what this whole finite life and this fading life, it gives
Yeah.
it all purpose that you need.
Yeah, like it so matters that this is
Yeah.
our duty, that there's so much meaning, from that eternal perspective.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Pastor. I really appreciate this. I thank you so much for getting us through Ecclesiastes. I know there was a burden to try to push it into 2 hours, but it's such a good book. As you said earlier, it's one of those things that I feel like more churches should focus more on this passage. If anything, this is where all reality, all walks of life, the believer and the non-believer can all relate to these
Yeah.
patterns of life and these ups and downs. So I thank you for bringing us to that, Pastor. I really do.
Welcome.
And I thank you guys for staying on and enjoying this
Yeah.
Bible study with us. I hope you guys did receive something great from this. I know there was plenty of comments, and we apologize if we couldn't touch all of them. But I really thank you guys for giving your insight and for keeping this conversation going forward. Let's not let it end here. Bring this into our everyday lives. I know we all congregate together. We all talk with each other on the side and in our own worlds. But let's continue this conversation. Let's continue keeping this, pushing this forward, because that's what Bible study is supposed to do. It's supposed to invite us into seeking more into God's word. Not the conversation just starts and ends here, but it should just be the introduction to our deeper journey into God. So thank you for that, Pastor.
You're welcome. I was thinking of this too. Jesus, right? It rains on the just, the sun rises on the just and the rain. It's like, damn, why am I righteous?
It's true.
Why do I gotta be good if look the wicked, right? So the limited under the sun is that's Havudan. That's meaningless. Why am I doing all of this if he gets it too? From that perspective, yeah, it's meaningless. From the God perspective, no, this is testifying of God's goodness and mercy and the window of grace that is still there now. Like,
Yeah.
okay, that's not so meaningless anymore.
Mm-hmm. And we also look at life under the sun, sun, as that, like it's just meaningless, this whole life and this purpose itself. But as you said, with eternity, we have life under the sun, the son, like under Jesus Christ. It gives us the opportunity to open life into eternity in itself, and it leads us there. It reminds me. I told you this a few days ago. But it reminds me of Francis Chan once said in one of his preachings. He used the theory of a rope, and he painted a little piece of a rope this big in red. And then he had like a 20-foot rope that lasted across the whole stage into the congregation everywhere. And he was like, this little piece of red rope is life. You could say it's life under the sun. It's life on earth.
Yeah.
And if you live your life and you do everything to try to please this one little piece, but then you forget about the whole rope that's attached to it, which is eternity and everything else to go from, then you will look at this and you will say, yeah, this little piece is meaningless. You cut it off, doesn't value anything. But it's what's connected to it. It's the eternity that we have in Christ Jesus, in our God, our Father, and what we have to expect and the hope that we have through salvation that just makes this so important.
Yeah.
And gives so much meaning to it.
Yeah. So. Awesome. Yeah. Great job.
Yeah.
So just closing announcements, guys. Some of you guys know these, right? You could always give through our website and online, and there's a QR code. You could just scan that. And of course, we want to announce that this Thursday we have encounter nights. Doors open at 7. Service begins at 7:30. Hosted by our amazing Tribe Youth and Young. But the service is for everyone. And then next Tuesday, it'll be our prayer call, not Bible study, but that'll be at 8 p.m. And there's information for you to connect via Zoom. And of course, on Sunday, I don't have a slide right here, but Sunday morning, we'll see you at 7 a.m. for anyone who wants to join us for prayer till 8 a.m. And then our service starts at 10, and we continue the Upside Down Kingdom. And that is all.
All right, guys. Well, God bless you all. I thank you all for joining us today. And we can't wait to see you guys next time we do Bible study. All right.
Thank you for your comments and your feedback. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Good night.